Pierre, what's the number one thing you're optimistic about in terms of the Ottawa Senators?
We're a team.
From puzzling trades to botch no trade clauses, Pierre Dorion's run as GM of the Ottawa Senators is one of the more mystifying tenures in NHL history. Through 7 years of his leadership, the Senators made one lonesome postseason appearance with a roster that Dorion mostly inherited, and in the years that followed, he repeatedly shot himself in the foot, though he isn't the only person to blame. In today's video, we are going to reflect on and analyze the Dorion era in its entirety, starting our timeline at the end of the 2015-16 NHL season. Coming off of a disappointing campaign, longtime general manager Brian Murray finally waved the white flag. While his record behind the bench was sparkling, helping the team to a Stanley Cup final appearance in 2007, Murray's foray into management never amounted to any significant playoff runs. Hence, a change in leadership was needed in Canada's capital. Enter Murray's right-hand man, Pierre Dorion.
The reason we are doing this today is that we want our fans to know that our management structure is in place.
Dorion's first order of business was hiring Guy Boucher as the team's head coach. You might remember him from his prior gig in Tampa Bay, where he installed one of the most electric coaching tactics in NHL history. The hire aimed to implement a more structured and defensively responsible system for a Senators roster that was actually not too bad on paper. In June of 2016, Dorion made several picks at the NHL entry draft, including Logan Brown in the first round, although none of these players made much of an impact at the NHL level for Ottawa. Come July, Dorion re-signed forward Mike Hoffman to a 4-year contract, ensuring the retention of one of the team's top offensive talents. More on Hoffman later. That summer, the Sens also signed veteran free agent Chris Kelly, bringing experience and leadership to a relatively young roster. But Dorion's first headline-grabbing move came when he snagged Derek Brassard in exchange for Mika Zibanejad. This move aimed to provide the team with a more experienced center to help in the short term. Brassard was coming off of his most productive season, with his highest career shooting percentage to date, while Zibanejad, only 22 years old, was solid yet unspectacular in his limited minutes through the early stages of his career. Since then,
now he's got it. Center, Zibanejad scores! Mika Zibanejad ties it!
Safe to say the Rangers got the best of Dorion in this one. Come the regular season, the Senators started strong and did not look back. Young players like J.G. Pageau and Ryan Dzingel took steps forward. Erik Karlsson reinforced his stature as one of the best defensemen in the league, and Craig Anderson stood tall in net en route to a playoff berth. Dorion reinforced the makeup of his roster with a handful of mid-season deals aimed at acquiring and maintaining veteran players. This included signing Zach Smith to a 4-year contract extension, acquiring Alexander Burrows and Victor Stalberg, while also trading Curtis Lazar for Jyrki Jokipaka as well as a second-round pick. In the 2017 playoffs, Ottawa caught lightning in a bottle. Erik Karlsson played out of his fucking mind. Pageau channeled his inner Fernando Pisani, and Bobby Ryan looked like an earlier Anaheim version of himself. They were one goal from a Stanley Cup Finals berth, but with a Chris Kunitz slap shot, it all came crumbling down.
Schultz working it back in deep. Fresh from the bench, it's Crosby. Crosby on Kunitz's shot. Penguins win it! And they go to the final!
At the 2017 NHL Draft, Dorion whiffed on Shane Bowers in the first round, but he did manage to hit on 2 later round picks in Drake Batherson and Alex Fermenton. Turning to the 2017 offseason, where Dorion actually showed some decent restraint. For a GM who just witnessed his team come tantalizingly close to the Stanley Cup Finals, his moves were few and far between, opting to run it back with only slight changes. So the 2017-18 NHL season comes, and things did not go according to plan for the Senators. While Mark Stone emerged as a legitimate force at the NHL level, Craig Anderson struggled mightily. Erik Karlsson took a step back while recovering from off-season foot surgery, and the Sens scoring as a whole started to shrivel under Boucher's systems. The season was quickly slipping away. The Senators were hanging from a cliff with failure biting at their heels. Remember that restraint we mentioned earlier? Well, the times had changed. In November of that season, Dorion made significant waves in acquiring centerman Matt Duchene in a 3-team deal that sent Kyle Turris to Nashville. As part of the trade, Ottawa also parted ways with the Hamburglar Shane Bowers and a conditional first-round pick, which would become their 4th overall selection in 2019. While the 2016-17 Senators were a solid team on paper who ultimately overachieved, Dorion did what every Canadian market GM seems to do once they get even a whiff of playoff success. He bought into the hype, and it cost them dearly. The Senators did not rebound with Duchene, and at the trade deadline, Dorion had to reconcile with his earlier moves while also selling off veteran pieces. Dorion also admitted defeat on Derek Brassard, shipping him, Vincent Dunn, and a 3rd-round pick for Ian Cole, Philip Gustafsson, as well as 2 high draft picks. Entering the 2018 offseason, approximately 1 year removed from their conference finals appearance, owner Eugene Melnyk and Pierre Dorion announced the Senators would undergo a rebuild. The news came on the heels of an off-ice scandal involving the spouses of Mike Hoffman and Erik Karlsson, which was all but confirmed when Hoffman was shipped to San Jose for pennies on the dollar. At the 2018 NHL Draft, Dorion elected to keep the 4th overall pick that was conditional in the Duchene deal and took future team captain Brady Tkachuk. Tkachuk was the only notable player to come out of that draft thus far for Dorion. What followed after the draft was months of speculation and rumors surrounding the core of the team. Erik Karlsson was put on the trade block as the biggest prize on the market, and after months of uncertainty, Dorion pulled the trigger on a deal that sent EK65 to the San Jose Sharks. In return, Ottawa received Chris Tierney, Dylan DeMello, Josh Norris, Rudolf Balcer, a 1st-round pick, as well as 2 second-round picks. At the time of this trade, a lot of Senators fans were pretty upset. Karlsson was a premier defenseman, and many viewed the return as quantity over quality, but now, in hindsight, the deal looks a little more favorable, with some luck actually going the Senators' way. DeMello and Tierney were solid contributors while in Ottawa. Josh Norris is an injury bug, but when he's healthy, he's a legitimate top 6 forward. But the biggest piece to this trade comes thanks to the San Jose Sharks for absolutely sucking in 2020.
With the 3rd pick in the 2020 NHL Draft, the Ottawa Senators choose this player. The correct response? Who is Tim Stützle?
Obviously, there's a lot to unpack with this trade, but in the year of our Lord 2024, the Senators did pretty well. Coming back to our timeline, in November of 2018, Dorion extended Mark Stone for 1 year through arbitration. This served as a temporary stopgap measure while seeking a proper trade partner for Stone's services. The season in itself went about how you'd expect for a team in the midst of a rebuilding identity crisis. In February of 2019, Dorion traded Matt the Savior Duchene for prospects Vitaly Abramov and Jonathan Davidson, along with a 2019 first-round pick. In addition, Dorion also traded Ryan Dzingel to Columbus, acquiring Anthony Duclair and 2 second-round draft picks. Then, just a few days later, Dorion also moved Mark Stone to Las Vegas in exchange for Eric Brandstrom, Oscar Lindberg, and a 2020 second-round pick. February 2019 was not kind to the Ottawa Senators. With key pieces gone and the rebuild fully underway, it's time now for a rapid-fire segment highlighting Dorion's rebuild transactions. Dorion hires DJ Smith as the Senators' new head coach. Aside from taking Shane Pinto in the 2nd round, the Sens largely miss on their draft selections. In a somewhat bizarre change of scenery deal, Dorion flips Cody Ceci for Nikita Zaitsev. Ottawa signs Thomas Chabot to an 8-year, $64 million contract. Artem Zub is signed as a college free agent. Ottawa selects Tim Stützle, Jake Sanderson, as well as Ridley Gregg in the first round of the NHL draft. Dorion trades Jonathan Gruden and a second-round pick for Matt Murray. Dorion trades a second-round pick for Derek Stepan. Ottawa seemingly misses on all of their draft selections, though it might be too early to tell. Dorion trades Evgeny Dadonov to Las Vegas for Nick Holden and a third-round pick.
I got a bad feeling about this.
Ottawa signs Drake Batherson to a 6-year, $30 million contract. Brady Tkachuk is signed to a 7-year, $58 million contract. Dorion trades a first, second, and third-round pick for Alex DeBrincat.
Good job, boys. 40 goal scorer.
Sorry about 7.
For a 40 goal scorer, we'll take it.
Dorion again admits defeat, trading a 25% retained Matt Murray along with a third and fourth round pick for future considerations. The Senators flip a young Philip Gustafson for an aging Cam Talbot. In a rare big-name free agent signing, Claude Giroux is inked for 3 years at $20 million. Josh Norris signs an 8-year, $63.6 million contract. Tim Stützle signs an 8-year, $66.8 million contract. In another salary dump deal, Dorion trades Nikita Zaitsev a second and fourth round pick for future considerations. Dorion trades a first and 2 second round picks for Jacob Chychrun. Dorion signs Jonas Korpisalo to a 5-year, $20 million deal. The Senators again admit defeat, trading Alex DeBrincat for Dominic Kubalik and a first-round pick. After reviewing his body of work, it seems pretty obvious as to why he was eventually fired, but it was actually a contract debacle that led to his departure. When Dorion traded Evgeny Dadonov to the Golden Knights in July of 2021, Ottawa failed to disclose the proper details of Dadonov's no-trade clause. This led to a complete shitstorm later down the line when Vegas attempted to trade Dadonov to the Anaheim Ducks, only for the deal to fall through due to his NTC. After a 21-month investigation by the NHL, which is curious given the then ongoing nature of the Senators franchise being sold, Ottawa was punished by being forced to forfeit a first-round pick in either 2025 or 2026. Dorion was quickly fired on the same day as that verdict. Wrapping up this video, I know there's a group of Senators fans who give Dorion slack or shits because he was hamstrung to Eugene Melnyk. While this was probably the case, all we can do is judge his tenure by the moves he made and the ultimate success of his team. Dorion inherited a decent squad, witnessed an unlikely playoff run, got desperate when the team started to struggle, then sold everyone off for a rebuild. I think the biggest takeaway from his tenure is horrible asset management. On multiple occasions, Dorion had to cover up a previously bad move by paying assets or only recovering a fraction of what he originally paid. While the Ottawa Senators currently possess multiple promising young players locked into long-term contracts, Dorion proved that he wasn't capable of rounding out the team's roster. His goaltending decisions were also horrible. Sure, you could argue that he at least locked up the Senators' core, but if Thomas Chabot has another down year, if Josh Norris continues to struggle with injuries, if Ottawa doesn't make the playoffs in 2024-2025, it will continue to warp our perception of Dorion's legacy. Fingers crossed on Travis Green and Steve Staios. Ottawa fans, I'm praying for you.